Vader's here. Now, on this moon.
How do you know?
I felt his presence. He's come for me. He can feel when I'm near. That's why I have to go. As long as I stay, I'm endangering the group and our mission here.
Amen.
Yeah. I have to face him.
Why?
He's my father.
Your father?
There's more. It won't be easy for you to hear it, but you must. If I don't make it back, you're the only hope for the Alliance.
Luke, don't talk that way. You have a power I don't understand and could never have.
You're wrong, Leia.
Wrong.
You have that power too. In time, you'll learn to use it as I have. The Force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it.
I had it?
My sister has it.
Yeah, my friend.
It's actually kind of great not watching it and just listening.
And just listening, correct.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I thought
You
that
really
would be...
are paying attention.
Well, and so the Force is strong
Yeah.
in his family.
Yeah.
Luke Skywalker's family.
Oh, God, I feel like I know where this is going.
How strong?
Oh, Jesus.
How strong is it? How?
Are we including Legends references?
I think we are.
Canon? Because in canon, I've heard people call him a weak B.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, fill in the blank.
I've heard that.
Yeah, I don't agree with it, but
Yeah. My friend, it's something, it's the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning.
amen.
And it's the last thing I think about when I lay down at night.
Amen.
How powerful is Luke Skywalker? I dwell on it, my friend. I meditate
Yeah.
from the time that I wake up to the time to the time I lay down. I don't
Absolutely.
know what else to say.
Bring a broom.
Bring a broom because it's
a
going to be a
mess.
mess up in here. This is welcome to Rebel Watch, friends, where we do it live. You know,
We do.
we really do. And this one we really are
Yeah.
actually doing live. So
Because I had no idea what you wanted to talk about.
you had no clue.
I mean, you could have pulled someone off the street.
Yeah.
And they'd be in the same position I am.
That's you're darn right.
Probably more knowledgeable about Star Wars, too.
Yeah. But old Jim Bob down there, he's
Come on
you
in,
know,
buddy. Have a seat. Have a seat.
But my friend, I don't
Yeah.
know. What is that something you ever ponder
Every day.
Like seriously, do you ever sit and think,
Oh, yeah.
how powerful is he?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, powerful enough, I think he scares himself.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
I
And then we're
mean-
going to do a blended
Yeah,
of
blended.
canon and legends,
Mhm.
you know, discussion here, my friend. Just a real informal, how powerful is he? Because I often think, you know, we've been introduced to Rey, and the Force has awakened.
Yeah.
It's awoken, excuse me, in Rey.
Mhm.
And I don't know, man. Do you feel like the same thing happened to Luke Skywalker in Episode 4? Like I mean, what? Have you ever noticed too that like you expect it to be some big, great training,
Yeah.
and it's really not.
It's very simple.
It's-
Rocks.
Yeah. Well. Yep.
I mean,
Remotes
lifting remotes for a couple minutes.
with the blast shield down.
Blast shield down.
You know, I really could see the remote.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, yeah, and Han calls him out,
Yeah.
you know, especially in the Family Guy spoof.
Really big time.
Yeah. Oh, you think you heard about 5 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I totally believe in it.
Yeah.
So I think it is, with the knowledge we have now about the Force, and after watching The Force Awakens, I think that was happening.
Yeah.
It just wasn't even something really that even George Lucas had really kind of expounded on.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
really dug into. It was
Well-
just kind of in him, and it just could do these things.
Yeah, sure. And I think we start at the beginning. We kind of talk about like, I've always been mystified
Yeah.
as to, like, I think you look at like the training that we had in the prequels, you know, for the younglings, and all the stuff that maybe that they went through, the regiment that they went through, and really Luke doesn't get that. It's all through experience, and it's actually Obi-Wan just explaining what the Force is what opens him up to it.
Yeah.
And you look at like Rey and Maz, just telling her that it's there and she's in tune with it, and that it has called out to her, and that it's always been there.
Similar. Very similar.
It's just letting someone know that that exists and saying it's there, believe it. And they've seen enough, anyways. They have enough experience to know, yeah, there is something. I do feel something else out there. And it's almost like Luke said that in A New Hope. You know, I almost did feel something. You know, is what he says.
Yeah.
You know, I almost could see the remote.
Yeah.
And it's like, so anyways, I see this sort of like different style of training. And when I think of The Last Jedi too, I think of how Luke was training Rey and the lessons that he was teaching her. You know, those the lightsaber skills and all of that, you know, the forms and stuff like that. That is not what we really see in the films. Yeah. You know, you might see some of that in the prequels and understand that it's there, it's a part of their regiment, you know, on Coruscant and in the temple, but and you get it in the Legends books, but really it comes down to those guiding words to help you, you know, get in tune with the Force. And I just think that's so interesting. I think it's just a different way to kind of like guide someone into this immense power. You know?
And isn't it great, though, that until the prequels came along, no one's questioning Luke Skywalker's lightsaber skills.
Yeah.
Not once.
Right.
It's the themes and the story that overcomes, you know, Alec Guinness's, you know, silly sword fighting style. It's the character moments and what's being accomplished in that moment that overcomes defensive styles. And
absolutely.
Until the prequels came and you dramatized those lightsaber scenes so much, then we start talking about powers and
you're right.
There's so much of the story, and that's why it's hard to even like compare the two, because I mean, unless you really dig into Legends novels, like you don't really see a ton of power from Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, well, and that's sort of why we're having this discussion, because you look at everything, all the fancy sword play and all that, you know, cool stuff that we see that we love. We love it. Yeah, we enjoy it. But you almost have to get into a conversation of like storytelling and the evolution of film, you know, and like how the emphasis was on every line was just dripping with juicy content, and it had layer upon layer, you know, and there were devices, you know, interwoven, you know, between characters. There was just so much more,
so much at stake.
Yeah,
when when Luke's fighting Vader, I mean, in the beginning, you know, when he first fights him, he learns he's his father later. But I mean, I don't know. It wasn't. There wasn't so much heaviness there to it, but man, when I think about Episode 6, and that's why we talked about lightsaber battles, you know, years ago with our buddies.
Yes, yeah.
That I call Episode 6, his duel with Vader, the best lightsaber fight of all time. The music was great. Yeah. The scene, the shot with the lightsabers and the smoke. There wasn't insaneness going on, but it was the fact that like this dude knows he's his father.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, you know, gonna fight him. And he has this real moment of anger, and Vader knows and says, "Oh, your sister."
That's right.
There's so much on the line, and there's so much at stake, and it's this dramatic, like familial, like issue at stake. You're not focused on the power. You're just like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen?
Yeah, because what if Luke doesn't win that battle and Vader wins? You know, is there still another way in Episode 6 where is there intervention? When you're first watching that, you don't know. Obi-Wan doesn't say. I mean, he says that he cannot intervene. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have the ability. I don't think it's like it's, you know, he and Yoda possibly could have intervened, and that again was, you know, one of George's ideas. Yeah, but there's also like what happens if Vader does win there? Like, is there does he still come back to the light side and sort of see? You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
There's just it's just the
so
stakes.
much at stake. You're right. That's just a good way to put it. But
you can't deny. I think he's immensely powerful.
Yeah.
And if you look at The Last Jedi, yeah, you know, he turned away because of what he was doing, but it was almost like he was scared of Kylo's or Ben's power, but he's also scared of himself and how powerful he could become in immersing himself down a dark path, I think, you know, like once I do this, I couldn't be stopped, but he says it was just a flick of a moment. And that says how powerful he is, because others in those moments, you know,
well,
didn't turn back.
You know, the other thing I would say is that like his potential, he knows what his potential is, and that he's ever growing in strength on in the light side.
Yeah.
And I do think Snoke brings up an interesting point in that, like, when darkness rises, the light will balance, and it brings, you know, that basically Skywalker's strength would be augmented.
Yeah.
It would increase in a way, because we would need that. We would need him to rise to meet, you know, the strength that is the dark side strength, the power that's growing in either Snoke or in you know, Ben Solo. And so I think there's potential for that, but there's even more so, as you say, when Luke looks down the other path he could take.
Yeah. That's not really anything. No one's really talking about that.
No, I think there's a lot there that he sees. I mean, basically, I almost wonder sometimes too, you know, he's telling Leia in the scene that we listened to at the beginning that the Force is strong in my family.
Yeah.
And there's something to that. And it's also, I've always thought about the Skywalkers being this, people often describe them as walking in the twilight, you know, this between light and, you know, night and day.
Yeah.
And that idea that that almost maybe is where they're most powerful.
Yeah.
You know, and to trying to find that balance, or that, you know, they continually struggle with this, because there's, I don't know, like there's such big pieces to the game that we're playing, right? That the both side is working to pull one character this way or that way in the Skywalker family. So,
so with the new movies, it's not so much about the person or their lineage when we're talking about the Force and its abilities. Is that why people now are turning on these new movies, because they want that legend? But here's the thing, though, and this is what upsets me so much, is that like Luke didn't have any of those moments in the films. These people are referring to Legends books of this powerful, you know, Grandmaster. And that's fine, but like, I don't know, like that's never what it was in the films. There was a bigger purpose, and there was an end game, and it was bigger than his powers. It was his choices. And that's what the new
you're darn right
movies
my friend.
are about. You know what I'm saying?
You just
like,
stole the words right. It's his choice to toss his lightsaber and say, "I'll never join you."
Exactly.
I'm a Jedi, like my father before me.
Exactly.
Yeah, that is his power. You know, one of the things, and actually they do a decent job of this in Legends. They often talk about, especially in Fate, about how he. That's Luke Skywalker's thing, is that he's pulled other Jedi back from the dark side.
Yeah.
He's known for doing that.
Yeah.
He's known for being very strong in the light side and resisting those temptations. You know, but then also realizing, I mean, he struggles with all of that with Mara, you know, the loss of his wife. And he knows that other people need to take point on, you know, going to confront Jason. He knows that he is not the one who can do it. It will destroy him.
Yeah.
You know, and it's some powerful times. But back to the film, you know, you're right. There's I think also the other question that I thought you were getting to there for a second was the idea that the Skywalker family is seemingly the Force is strong, right?
Yeah,
it is strong, not seemingly, but it
Yeah.
is strong in their family. Are there other, you know, do we continue with that saga?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, is that what, like, if they die out, I don't know, do we continue with the Skywalker name? Also, my friend, how does the Skywalker name continue?
It can't.
It cannot.
the only way is if Rey is a Skywalker. That's the only way.
Yeah.
Unless Luke is hiding children.
Yeah.
Which, who knows?
I don't know.
But that's the thing. It's just like that. Disney and the people writing Star Wars material know that the Skywalker legacy cannot last forever. They're setting it up in every, medium that Star Wars is putting content out. In the comics, it's even in the Vader comic when Vader is raiding the Jedi Temple to kill Jocasta Nu.
Mm-hmm.
She says, even if you kill me and you kill like the rest of the Jedi, the Force itself will manifest in someone. It has already decided that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't, who it is insignificant, and that's what the new canon material is going down, and that's why everyone's calling Rey a Mary Sue and all this and that, and they're missing the point. It's just like the Force was almost insignificant in original Star Wars. It's the choices people make. It was all about redemption.
Mm-hmm.
Luke making the choice to save his friends. Luke making the decision to fight his father, to turn away from him. It was movies of choices.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's being lost.
Yeah, I hear you.
I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and part of it is too is it's as Yoda said, the Force was his ally. It is his ally.
Exactly.
It's not necessarily that it's, and it has kind of turned. I mean, just what you said too with the comics, it is turning more into the Force is awakening, and it does choose and land on different people. So I see what you're saying, in that like it is if you wanted to drift away from the Skywalker story and the Skywalker saga and that family, then you would need to do that. You would need to have someone named Rey who is no one.
Yeah.
And that is maybe what they've done.
Yeah.
I mean, so far, right now, that is what they've done. So you've got a Solo who could continue, but that's, that's it. I mean, Skywalker name is just done. The family still continues, and that's cool with Ben, but we don't know how far that's going to go or if it will, all that kind of stuff. It's all up in the air. But, back to, I think, just talking about Luke and where he's at in his I was mentioning just like his power in that, like you said, with the choices and his ability to be this great example for us. I think too, one of the things I was shocked by in The Last Jedi was that like the difficult choice.
Yeah.
So he's had multiple difficult, he's had all these different choices, as you said, that he's had to make in the originals, and then in the sequels, the big choice is to disappear.
Yeah.
To vanish.
Yeah.
To say it's not about me.
He thought it was necessary. He knew he was a legend.
Yeah.
People talked about him.
Well, yeah, exactly. And he knew all these different things, and I think he almost thought that he himself got too arrogant, and that he was, kind of becoming like that prequel, generation of Jedi.
Yeah.
And he felt like, as you said, that the Force would choose someone, that it would land on someone, it would awaken in someone else.
And not just the light side. The dark side rose because Luke was powerful, because he defeated the Sith. So
True.
He wasn't just abandoning the Order or whatever because he was upset about what he did to Ben. Like he just thought that he brought this upon the galaxy, that this evil rose because of him. That's, if that's not powerful, if the Force is manifesting itself in Snoke or Ben and turning Ben, I mean, that's saying that there's,
Well, you can see that the Force guides different people to various objects or relics or to even a society.
Yeah.
So when you look at like the First Order and its formation, we don't know a lot about it, and what took place in the unknown regions. So maybe there is that, again, that will that's at work, in the Force itself. But then you have it, right? You have the Force, and you also have what I think is great about these stories is those who are not Force sensitive. And I really want to talk a whole lot about that, but Luke cuts himself off from the Force completely, and decides, right? I mean that for a Jedi is painful. And Legends, you would often hear about like it's almost like it became like a
punishment.
Yeah, and it was also like they felt. Remember how they felt when they went to the homeworld of the Sith Emperor, and there was that void. I mean, that was a little bit different because that was even more just
but it
void
was
of
part
everything.
of them.
Yes.
Like it was their senses. It was everything that they had known since they were born.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because it is who they are. And so even though Luke, learned to use the Force, he's Force sensitive his whole life, and then he cuts himself off from it.
Yeah.
And he sacrifices, himself to help move the galaxy forward. And so again, another great choice, another, just interesting that like we almost see it as him failing, but yet it does show where his power, his wisdom, and it sort of shows you a lot about who he is. And I love the line that that Snoke kind of uses and talks about how powerful or how wise Skywalker is.
Yeah,
in his decision making there.
absolutely.
So I don't know. I think that's interesting. When you talk about just basic Force abilities, if that was what you thought we were going to talk about,
well,
we disappointed you. But because we don't think that's necessarily what it's about all the time.
No,
and I think that is what people go to is that like, well, Mace Windu has this special technique that he can, use. He's got
it's not why I watch Star Wars.
Shatterpoint, and exactly.
It's not why I watch it.
So to us, it is now. But there's great things about some of those. Mace Windu's decision making and Yoda and the flaws and all those different things, they make a great story. So when you just hyper focus on one character and you look at Luke, there's so much more to it than his Force abilities. But we are going to talk about the Force abilities because I think they're cool to talk about. But like just starting off too, what's amazing is that what I really liked about The Force Awakens is we got to see new Force abilities. Yeah. And that's what we all like. We love to see different, even if it's just a slight variation, a subtlety. The Last Jedi really pushed us into some, either pulled from Legends or really took us to a new place with Force abilities, and I mean, who would have thought too, just like this, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm just blown away by, let's just look at the, at A New Hope and his powers and how they develop there. Yeah. With just seeing the remote, and then augmenting his ability to be a good pilot and guiding the torpedoes, into the Death Star. Yeah, it's subtle, isn't it?
It is. It is very subtle.
Yeah,
I mean, you don't really you see more. You see Force jumps from him. You see on Bespin. How does he hit just that tunnel thing? How does he go into there? Like you know what I'm saying? Like did he know he was going to fall in there? Did he use the Force? But it's very subtle. I had another thought, but we'll come back to that.
Okay. Yeah, I love the subtlety of it, and I love that it grows. Yeah, it's just continued to grow in the universe and stuff. But that's why I think it is important to sometimes go back to some of these simple but yet powerful moments. Okay, and just those abilities that we kind of first learn, And so he's got the Force pull, and do we even see a Force? I'm trying to think, with Luke. Like a Force push.
Obi-Wan, well, we're talking about Luke, but he sees Obi-Wan use like the mind tricks and stuff.
Yes,
and
which he tries in 6.
He does.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's Obi-Wan makes a noise on the Death Star to distract people, but like Luke, I mean, he hears Obi-Wan.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
I mean, you have to probably be pretty strong to be in tune with that.
Yeah, and that's also Obi-Wan's strength too, coming to speak to him. But yeah, I mean, so I was trying to think of like a Force push. I was actually just thinking to myself, when do you see that first Force push?
When he tosses the grappling hook.
Oh, okay.
He's absolutely using the Force there. No one makes that toss.
Yeah, it's a fantastic toss, yeah. I was trying to think, though, where we saw it, because we see the Force pull, the same kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
I mean, really, he's pulling that lightsaber in on Hoth there.
Yeah, but that's 5. But on the
it's 5. Yeah, I was trying to think in 4.
There's not a whole lot.
No, there's really not. I mean, there's not. And he's learning the ways of the Force. Yeah, and becoming a Jedi like his father. Yeah, and it's
does he fail a whole lot ever in A New Hope?
I mean, he gets hit a couple times by that remote. It definitely.
So after The Force Awakens, and I always bring Rey into this because they're so comparable.
No, that's fine. That's what we're doing.
They're so comparable, and so there's a lack of development of her in The Last Jedi, but immediately after The Force Awakens, people started talking about this Mary Sue and that she has no failure in the movie. What is Luke Skywalker's failure in A New Hope? He makes a miracle shot. He has all these abilities really quickly. He's a hero of the rebellion immediately.
Yeah, that's why it's an epic. I mean, that's sort of the it's what George did is he pulled from he built this mythology, and he told an epic tale.
Yeah,
like a great.
It's
almost like like really when you hear about great legends, you hear of these. Maybe what you hear is so exaggerated. Because over time the telling has gotten these tall tales have emerged, but and we actually got to see it, but we can see, I could even see like he did all these amazing, awesome things. And he doesn't really fail, does he?
Not in that one. He gets his hand chopped off by his father in the next installment. But so what's great about that storytelling aspect, and when you're talking about these thoughts that we have in our head about what Luke becomes, I think it's because George Lucas created a great hero out of not a lot, a farm kid.
Yeah.
And so your mind is able, even without, and maybe I stepped a bit too far saying, people are thinking of this because of Legends. I think some of that is there, because every time someone references, The Last Jedi and its failures, it's like, we saw this awesome, Luke Skywalker and Legends material and Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi. Yeah, I agree, but like a lot of that has to do with, our minds of Luke Skywalker being a hero, and George Lucas set that up, and like, because it ended on this, epic note, you automatically wonder, okay, is he starting his own? I mean, even without the legend stuff, is he starting his own order? Is he? What is he gonna do? It's gonna be something epic, because it's the guy who blew up the Death Star. He redeemed the most heinous villain ever. Like, obviously, he's gonna go do great things. And for the fact of him failing, people are just like, that's not my Luke Skywalker. He's human. It's how you grow, and that Yoda moment is great. It's great. Failure. It's such an underutilized tool.
It's the greatest teacher,
and
right?
Hero stories. Yeah.
And again, Yoda again, another great line from him. The idea that Luke is what they will grow beyond. Which is great. So we have this conversation now, just about how great he is and what makes him sort of, a legend, and how powerful he is. It's I think it's again, it's weird because we're kind of like you're looking at like his force ability. We're not even going to talk about midichlorians. We're not mentioning that at all. Okay, maybe we will.
Maybe.
But but okay, all right. You know what? Fine.
Why not?
Hold on. So if you look at, because you could have looked at this, we could have started off with like midichlorian counts and where you at, but you started talking about choices, and it's sort of like, doesn't really matter. Look at Anakin's midichlorian count. You know what I mean? And look at the choices that are made there. And again, you get into the prophecy and fate and intermixing free will and all sorts of crazy stuff. But, Luke strives to live in the light. And he I don't know. It is those great choices that continue to just over and over and over. You're developing a habit. He's building, this habit. And so I think it does help to kind of, I almost would imagine that the Force would reward you for that.
But that's the thing, though. With the light and the dark, should it reward you?
I know. You're gonna get back to the balance.
If there's a true balance, but that's Luke Skywalker's rejecting that because of this enlightenment that he's had. That power and that rigid nature, as Qui-Gon said in our last discussion, leads you to failure. And it did. It led Luke to failure. It kept him away. It allowed him to fail Ben Solo. It just did. And some of that was the manipulation of Snoke, but that rigidness just, I don't know. I think he's abandoning it now. So it may not even necessarily be a good thing to be such an epic, all-powerful Jedi.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, for sure. I mean, we're not saying just because you are the most powerful that means you're the best. Because like as you're saying with Qui-Gon. And him seeing sort of Yoda's far more powerful
Oh yeah.
right? When,
Yeah.
when you look at that, but like look at the wisdom that Qui-Gon was speaking to him.
Yeah.
You know, in the comic just last week we were talking about that, and you know, even in episode 1, you can see a lot of wisdom in what he says to the council.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, absolutely.
So I mean, yeah, I guess they're you know, so multifaceted conversation here. You could have, you know, lots of different you know, takes on how you look at this, and so yeah, I know that's interesting just to think about Qui-Gon. You know, because he's someone who you consider not a very powerful Jedi.
Yeah.
Powerful air quote here, right? With his abilities, but wise, so wise.
Well, and maybe
makes good choices again, though.
Yeah.
Back to like Luke, you
Yeah.
know, making those good choices. So,
But maybe if Luke had been able to seek counsel with Qui-Gon, maybe he wouldn't have made the same mistakes that. In my opinion, he compares his failures to that of the older or the newer Republic, the past Republic.
yeah,
They're similar failures, but maybe if Qui-Gon and him could have communicated, you know, that would kind of been a nice drop. If he was just
Boy.
like, you know, I learned a lot in my time here, or you know, in exile. You know, I saw counsel with Yoda, but also Qui-Gon. That would have been epic. You want to tie in the prequels like that? That would have been sick. Yeah,
Yeah.
you referenced Darth Sidious, but if you would have referenced Qui-Gon,
yeah,
and more of that balance, that would have. I mean, that would have been deserving of Qui-Gon.
Yeah, for sure. Let me bring up a couple things here. Some stuff that I hadn't
Come on.
looked at in a long time. So, you know, there's different types of conversations you can have when you talk about either who's the greatest Jedi, or you talk about how powerful a certain Jedi is, you know, different things like that. You can look at their decisions. You can look at, as we've been saying, their choices, their actual Force ability. You can look at midichlorian count, a lot of different things. So when, especially Legends sort of did a pretty good job with this, when they looked at the aspects of Force powers, they looked at your control. How much you, so
Yeah.
when you read the novel, so we're going to kind of shift just a little bit and talk about like some of that, you know, the different aspects of the Force and how well you could control it, and your mastery, you know, of it was sort of one aspect. And then you had this, you know, your sensibilities. And again, you can go look at Wikipedia. They do a great job of kind of like listing off all of these different, you know, things that you could, if you just type in force abilities, you'll find it. This includes things like, you know, Force. Guys, again, when you bring in Legends, you've got things like Force smell. Okay,
You can't deny it.
it's there. You know, it's there.
It's of the senses.
It's
so
of the senses.
yeah,
But,
they're heightened.
but yeah, so you look at you know, Jedi's or anyone, you know, from any order, their ability to sense the Force, you know, and that's something, you know, Qui-Gon often was telling Obi-Wan was to, you know, trying to raise his awareness of his sense of the Force around him, and even sometimes maybe it's will and what it is that, you know, it's guiding you towards. Now let's see here. So it kind of keeps going on. There's much more to it. You can there are abilities that were considered alter abilities, right? They were taught to the Jedi Knights who had mastered the art of control and sense, and so there's more that you can kind of continue to alter and manipulate the Force, and so you had a lot of different powers with that, which were pretty neat. So yeah,
I specifically like Force empathy.
Force empathy. Okay,
You wouldn't really think of, you know, being empathetic as a Force ability, but it almost references that Inquisitor I talked about in the Darth Vader comic, where he mentions, you know, certain of us Inquisitors have, you know, heightened like Force abilities in certain realms, and his was his emotions, and I would call it his Force empathy, and picking up on people's motivations and their hidden feelings and their deeply guarded secrets. That would have, you know, benefited the Jedi, you know,
Absolutely.
with Palpatine. So
yeah.
So that's a good reference though, because it's not just, you know, wielding a lightsaber or Force pushing someone. There's so many senses to consider, and
You're right, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, that is where you get the EU kind of coming into all of this, and sort of you you can have. That's why I said you can have different types of debates and different types of discussions on, depending on what you almost need to hyper focus on something and pick some way. You're going to look at just lightsaber abilities. You're going to look at like power of the Force. Is it his control of the Force, his sense? What is it, that you want to look at and almost have to kind of compare, him to other, Jedi or Force sensitive beings or what have you. And it's hard to do.
There's too much material almost to have those conversations.
I think that, there is really, but there's also what I think too, different time periods. And again, this is also just the nature of like, these came out in the 70s versus coming out in the 90s and early 2000s and then the sequels. So, but I would also argue that like with the originals, you had far fewer Jedi.
Yeah.
And so, like the powers are, how do I put this? I almost feel like, maybe that the fewer that there are, you're going to see more, look at Rey, so like, if the light side just has one hero champion because Luke's cut himself off, it's going to give that champion everything that it has.
Yeah.
It's going to really throw a lot of different, skills out there and at them. And maybe it's just it's enough. Maybe Rey needed more because of what Kylo had, the skills that he had been taught. I don't know. I kind of, because I'm thinking too, like, just with that development, like, are there more abilities, in Legends because we had more Sith and Jedi? And I'm talking post Episode 6, and I'm talking, you could say, pre-Episode 1 and just the prequels. You have that, numerous Jedi, and so there's a lot more, I don't know, to kind of go different, I guess when you spread the Force out among a large group of people, you have different, you have healers, you have those that are better with battle meditation, you've got different, focuses and stuff. Whereas like, I feel like when you have fewer Jedi, they're going to get a well-balanced, a well-rounded, and so that's why I think Master Skywalker has a lot of those, things that maybe, like that might have been, like you needed a unit almost, like you needed back in the day, like more Jedi working together, using all of their abilities, and it was sort of spread out among the Jedi, and different like talents would emerge and things. Yeah. So with Luke, it's sort of like, he's it, we need everything. He's got to have everything, and he continues to kind of learn about it, and it evolves. So, and
it's interesting how though that the idea of the Force and its power has evolved over time, knowing, because in the original trilogy you didn't know that there were all these. I mean, you knew there was a war. You knew there was Obi-Wan and Luke's father fighting the Dark Times. Yeah. But I mean, there's so much. I don't know. There's so much now to compare to, and the discussion I'm sure evolves. But it's so hard for me to wrap my mind around this because it's not my favorite discussion to talk about like Force abilities and power and stuff like that. But when we do, and we think about all this Legends material, I think what's the creator's thoughts on all of this extra Force talk, Force abilities talk? Like, if you look at just the movies in which he created, it's not. Is that really like a
George Lucas's focus?
Yeah,
no.
And everyone wants to talk about, what would Lucas have done? I mean, he was gonna supposedly dig deeper into like midichlorians and like try to explain things on a scientific level.
Yeah, you're right.
So maybe he would have broken it down more. I don't know, but it never felt like that. And maybe this is just my love of Star Wars is different than it's not something I really focus on.
I even think he, as a storyteller, his own mindset could have shifted too, going into the prequels, saying, you know what, let me shore some of this up here. People want more explanation on what the Force is. Let me see if I can do that. Let me see if I can, put this in a box or make sure that it stays outside of a box. Either way, and that might have been some of his thought process there, because I've never really done a lot of. They've always been kind of cringeworthy to me, some of the interviews that I watch with George Lucas and him talking about, things in the prequel era. So I don't know, but yeah, I see what you're saying though. Is that like what drew us, what we like so much about the originals is the story. Yeah, it's this, and again, the Force. It wasn't anything that they really, because Luke asked I've always gone back to this. Luke asked Obi-Wan, so we control it. And he
Yeah.
was like, no. He explains that's almost a yes and no. Like, no,
Yeah.
it's not something that we really should be bending to our will necessarily.
Mhm.
That it kind of, well, I mean, the Luke is even asking, like, does it controls us or we control it? There's that whole conversation. I don't have the quote in front of me, but you definitely need to go look it up because it does say a lot. I think about like how the Force was viewed by Obi-Wan and then Luke moving forward.
Yeah.
Versus like, is it something that we can control ourselves and then I can create all these different cool Force powers like Jason Solo thought that he could do? He felt like he needed to gather this arsenal. He needed to know more about the Force and what he could do with the Force than anyone else. And this is so, here you go, to get us back into the idea that that's not necessarily the route we should always go. Luke didn't see wisdom in that in Legends and tells Ben, his son, that like, those things are actually end up what, took Jason down the dark path.
Yeah.
Because he wanted all of those different part of it. There's a lot more to it. But it's like he didn't see the need to learn all those things. I mean, really dissuades his son from trying to, or the flow walking bit,
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, he wants to learn them for the sake of preventing anything like that again, and he thinks he's powerful enough to be able to like determine when he's crossed the line.
Oh yeah.
And he doesn't think his son is powerful enough.
Sure.
But it's
But that's not his his goal.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
No,
It's
no.
also so he always takes you back to your core, your intentions. What is it that you're trying to do and what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And that's why he is a true protagonist. He's the heart and soul to Star Wars. From the get go, we're following Luke's decision making. Mark Hamill, he knows this character. He knows Luke Skywalker, and he's always talked about him being that character that a lot of people can relate to. He's very relatable.
Yeah.
In a lot of different ways. And so
if he's so relatable and he has a moment of failure, why are people so upset by that?
Mm-hmm.
If he's truly relatable in the way we think he is it just that we don't want to acknowledge that we have bad times and that we do fail and we tend to, that's what tends to make us grow is the failure and not the doing great?
Well,
why is everyone making that such a issue?
Yeah, and so that's my other thing too is I've always seen sort of like a double-edged sword here with like what Ryan Johnson does with The Last Jedi and how Luke is, we call that a failure, but I don't know that he was failing. I think he was preserving something. What I'm saying?
I totally agree.
I know on the surface, yeah, it looks like he's failed. And if you talk about just like losing Ben Solo,
he failed.
Okay,
yeah.
sure. All right, I'm more talking about his, whether you would call it cowardice or him. People don't like the idea that he ran to Octu and stays, there. And but there's a reason he's there. He's making a sacrifice.
And that's what the Jedi texts. He says that's what the Jedi texts say to do until you've actually obtained balance and can think clearly. You shouldn't act.
Well, and that's the thing. So one of the things too is that he's like, I think he's, you kind of said it is that he's waiting to sort of see what is next. He's put himself there. It is a self-sacrifice. It's one of the other reasons why I think he's able to become one with the Force. It is a great sacrifice that he goes through.
And if he came there to actually die and he completely was cutting himself off it and thought he served no purpose, why not just off yourself? Why not just, I know that's kind of a dark thought, but like if you're going there to die, why go through this routine all the time and just,
I mean, and I think, again, I think his core disagrees with that,
exactly.
like that idea. And you go back to his intention. That's why I lost my train of thought a second ago. But is his intention when he goes to Octu? It's good intentions.
Yeah,
he has good intentions to go there. It's not like he wants to turn his back on the galaxy, or he thinks actually that by going there he's doing the right thing. Now it takes the Force coming back to him. I mean, he's doing what he thinks is right. He's trying to do the best, that he can do. And again, that's sometimes when you look at the dark side and you look at what the mistakes that are made by some of our favorite, characters or Anakin or whoever, they think they're doing what's right.
Yeah.
And they really believe that's why we've had conversations about Ben Solo, and I'm like, what is it that he believes so passionately about, or what is his end goal that he wants to be that he wants to learn the dark side and he wants to be on the dark side? There has to be some reason for him to want to be there versus just
Anakin thought he was doing something
right
to preserve,
to save someone he loves,
someone he loves, and it even became of like, I'm protecting democracy.
Yeah, the galaxy here. Yeah,
manipulated way of
perverted
way of thinking about it. Yeah, but even I'm sure I need to read James Luceno's Darth Plagueis book to kind of get into the mind of Palpatine and what his ambitions were. But I mean, it was, I don't know, greed and obviously power. But yeah, I mean, so what is Ben Solo's purpose? What is his reason for doing what he's doing? It's got to be. It doesn't feel like it's just power, man. Something else.
Yeah,
something else. But diverting off the topic. My apologies.
Yeah, one thing I'll kind of just to shift this back again. This is more just a discussion about Luke Skywalker. You know, it's not all just about like how powerful he is. Although I will say, that George Lucas himself did say that Luke Skywalker is the most powerful.
Amen.
Jedi of all time.
The creator said it. There's no debate to it anymore.
He said that.
That's it.
But at one point, now I can't remember exactly when he said that. I was doing a little digging just on his thoughts on Luke, but and now with the state of Star Wars, who knows what direction they're going, and obviously with the quote from Yoda that Rey and Ben will probably grow beyond where he's at. But what does that mean? You know what I mean? In what way? Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's interesting to kind of think about. But anyways, you know, that character, I understand why people are so like the debate and the treatment of Luke Skywalker, whether good or bad or whatever you may think, has caused so many, you know, issues. I think in the community, people just wanted it to go a different way. They had their own mindset on how things should have been. But I, like you, my friend, think it was real. It was it showed a real side of someone. It showed someone who was struggling, you know, with what to do, you know, to say, I've got to put me aside. This legend has got to my head. Yeah. You know, and it makes a lot of sense. It's such a good thing to think. I mean, he's getting it. No one had to come and tell him that. He was just sort of like, this maybe is on me, you know, and I need to step aside and let someone else rise. Yeah. And then it takes someone rising and saying, no, you were a legend. You did do great things. You are the most powerful. You are, you know, you're who we need. We need a legend now. We need that legend. And and again, it's that passing of the torch. Yeah. We need you to be this legend, and I am connected to you. Now, that's not really what Rey's saying, but the Force in this whole storytelling bit is guiding us to the idea that he's a legend. He's come back, saved the Resistance. Rey is with him. She has learned from him, and that torch will pass. And now she has to do, you know, more great things.
Would it have been cool if he would have actually showed up on Crate and kicked some butt? Would have been cool. But like, people are missing the point of this new trilogy is to move on past these characters and create new characters for the future.
Can I tell you too? I actually think this is probably going to upset a few people, but like they might have missed a little bit with. I don't really know. Now again, you know how like we all believe that like Luke Skywalker is the. This is a story about Luke Skywalker. The Adventures of Luke Skywalker is what the first, I think, novelization was kind of called. And then over time it became, no, it's about Darth Vader. It's about Anakin Skywalker, actually. Yeah. And this is a, 9-piece, thing here. So I think, so we're not really sure. We know Rey is like our protagonist, right? But I think they could be working some angle there with Ben Solo. That Darth Vader, that Anakin Solo or Anakin Skywalker type of connection. He and Ben might share that type of role. It could be a story that like is actually about Ben. Yeah. But we see it through Rey's eyes, kind of like what we saw with Darth Vader. You see it through Luke's eyes, or Anakin's story. Because think about this, man. Like Rey doesn't really blow up the Death Star, does she? I mean, or the Starkiller base. I mean, like, how does the galaxy know about Rey? What do they know about Rey? See, the galaxy knew about Luke because he destroyed the Death Star. He was the one. Yeah. He was the one. And then, so that puts him on the map. What is Rey to the galaxy?
Finn seems to have more of a heroic standing than she does.
He's the hero.
He's the one that brought down the shields and
Yes.
and penetrated. And
Yeah, and then Han and Chewie were the ones who set the detonators and kind of blew it up. And Poe Dameron is this hero. They're actually rescuing Rey.
Yeah.
And now Rey does. We get to see her fighting and taking on Kylo Ren. And maybe some of the Resistance have heard that. But how did that impact the rest of the galaxy?
Yeah, I don't know.
You see,
It's hard too to understand the scope because I'm watching Resistance right now, and it's just like it's a big galaxy,
yeah,
and it's like, how are they going to give her that epic moment?
Yeah.
I'm struggling with that.
where she saves the galaxy.
Where she saves, and she is our Luke.
Well, yeah, and again, maybe we keep going back to maybe they're not looking at this as this trilogy is going to end with Rey here in Episode 9. Maybe it goes beyond that, and we're still building towards some of her epic moments, which could be the case.
Yeah, I sure hope so.
But even Anakin was put on the map because of his accomplishments in Episode 1. You know?
True.
Accomplishments, his small little, but like going in and destroying the command
But he was an
center.
accomplished pod racer, even.
That too.
You know, it's just... I don't know, man. There's so much.
It's just different.
It is different. But even right now with these new characters, there's so much conversation about Luke Skywalker. Is he going to have this epic moment in Episode 9? I'm like, in my opinion, he did have that epic moment, and I want I want him to offer Rey guidance. I want him to be involved.
Have some great lines, some good quality lines.
Yeah, but like an Alec Guinness kind of.
Yeah, he comes up. He pops in real quick and says, "From a certain point of view."
Yeah, from a certain point of view, and here's what you need to watch out for. I don't necessarily need him fighting anyone. I don't think he needs that epic moment. That's just my opinion. But like, I'm wondering if like JJ is going to listen to those people.
I don't think he is.
I mean, you're completely ignoring the development of The Last Jedi. Then I think. If you're just gonna, have him come back in some epic form, like,
oh no, yeah, exactly, no, it's
know,
yeah, I actually think Ryan was tasked to find a way to give him a moment and then let him go. I really do because he is Master Skywalker. I mean, you did need some sort of moment. I said we needed before we went into Last Jedi, he needs to have this super awesome, kind of badass moment where Luke Skywalker is Grandmaster like, and he does have that moment, It kills him. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. It was something that only a master could do. And it killed him.
It did kill him.
And I actually think more so too, like it drained him. And he still regains his seat and sits on that rock. And I think he just became one with the Force, man.
More of a choice.
Exactly. I don't even know that it killed him. So sometimes I say that and I'm like, I don't really think so. I think it was more just, same thing with Obi-Wan. It was just, I'm good now.
Yeah,
Here we go.
That's. I mean, Obi-Wan did that.
That's
it
exactly
wasn't the lightsaber this.
No, it wasn't. No.
So, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because he regains his seat and he sits up and he has a few moments to look into the sun, and he's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine. It exhausted him. So because I don't like the idea, like it would have drained him. And I know that Kylo Ren says, the force of this would kill you to Rey. And to her, it might.
Yeah.
But to Luke Skywalker, it was just sort of his last great act. And then I almost believe that there's more that he could do, by becoming one with the force.
That may be
they
him.
had moved on. Those characters had moved on. He had no maybe way to get Rey back to Octu. How does he know if she's even going to come back? He's sunk his X-Wing.
Did he sense that Snoke is gone and he needs to maintain that balance?
Maybe that. A lot of different things. I think we're going to find out a little bit more about, he needed to become one with the Force. And I think we're allowed to, I think I like that you can leave it open-ended like that and sort of have two guys sit here and talk about, how it was probably a choice versus like the force of it actually killing him.
Because that kind of open-endedness and the way the original movies were created allowed people to create their idea. It's why we are where we are now, and it's why this has been going on for years. People just have a platform of expressing their opinion more now than they did in the past.
Absolutely.
It was happening before with Star Wars. It's happening now. It's just the way it was written and the story that was created that everyone has their own interpretation. And that's why like you, I appreciate leaving it kind of open ended, because that's what allowed all these epic legend stories to be created. Was kind of that open endedness, and to let these authors kind of make it their own as well.
Right.
And that hit with some people and it didn't with others. But it's just, I don't know. I'm right there with you. I think he's epic in his own way. And it may not necessarily be force jumping and
exactly.
And,
I'll be honest with you. It's sort of, it's crazy to say this now. I wasn't sure how I felt when we were at Celebration. We were talking to some guys who were all about petitioning actually to bring Legends, back and make it canon, or to create all 2 timelines, all this kind of stuff, And it's like I said a couple weeks ago, I like imagining all the great things, and I love being able to say Luke knows all these all the abilities that we have in Legends.
Yeah,
he knows them all.
Yeah,
and he's used them all.
Yeah,
in some regard, we may not see it.
Yeah,
and we may not have to, but thank God we have Legends. You can go read it. There's so much there. He uses so many Force abilities in Legends. It's unreal. Yeah, it's crazy actually. And so there really is no debate. When it comes down to like talking about the most powerful Jedi, the one you see developed the most and flushed out the most is Luke Skywalker. Yeah, that's who you see the most.
Absolutely.
You actually see him go through and face more than any Jedi out there. He's the one we follow. So it is going to be difficult, I think, for people to kind of see 9 go by and figure out what to do after that. It's gonna without a Skywalker,
and that's
either without a Skywalker or just without a Luke. I don't know what
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's not so final that there isn't, room for new people to join the Star Wars community and kind of make it their own. And I think it's unfortunate that so many people go online and make people feel terrible for having an opinion that they don't agree with, because you're isolating the Star Wars community to just your opinion. And that's we all appreciate and have our own thoughts so much because of this story, the original Star Wars story, and we're losing so much sight of that kind of interpretive aspect of it. You're trying to pin something down that doesn't necessarily need to be pinned down and say this is the way. It's just we all have our ideas of what it is, and that's great. And that's something that we need to start appreciating more, and that could generate better content in the future of Star Wars and bring more people in. If we have such tunnel vision about the Force and these powers, and he needs to do this, he needs to have this moment, like.
Right. Well, let me here's something to kind of dwell on. The Skywalkers, well, Shmi, anyways, and Anakin just show up in Episode 1. There's this great epic tale about the Skywalker family. There it is. It's done. Yeah. Now, what's wrong with Rey being the next who knows what?
Exactly.
Give her a sick last name, and she is this new family. The Force is strong in her. Yeah. And her family and her abilities, and it's something that we learn about. There's maybe some great mystery in who her parents are, but she doesn't have to be a Skywalker. She doesn't have to be, she's someone brand new. Yeah. And you do then people who have watched the sequels and they love Rey. Now whatever offshoot they take that's the new thing. Yeah. The Skywalkers are kind of on their way out. The Solo. I mean, and again, you can continue it with the Solo legacy, but
you would have thought that like Episode 1 would. I mean, people talked about him being the chosen one and the Force just manifesting itself, and then there was the thing about midichlorians. But like, why is it so problematic that Rey could have just? Why? Maybe she had a Shmi situation, and she just wasn't picked up by the Jedi Order.
Oh, sure.
What's so wrong with that? No one's saying that's the dumbest thing ever. They just accept it like Luke Skywalker was made by midichlorians, and it could have just been, it could have been Palpatine, but that's what's cool about it. It can be, who knows what it's going to be. It's never going to be answered. It never will be answered.
No, shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
No.
And so it's just like, she doesn't have to be. We're so attached to the Skywalker story, and I want it to continue too. And I think it's great making those connections. But
you can always. I like the idea of like you were heading this direction with like leave it open ended.
Yeah.
Leave a chance there, but
Yeah.
then go ahead and take us with someone else, and then
Yeah.
like years down the line, so you develop this new generation. Let them buy into a new family or a new legacy, a new Rey and her offspring or whatever, and love that. Get to know it, and that's their Star Wars that they grow up with. And thus, we had the ending to the Skywalkers. You could bring it back later.
You could,
know.
But you know what else?
They
though?
could encounter. Could you imagine if the Skywalkers went away, but they were just like, man, will they ever bring that back? They left a way in which they can do it, and they're thinking, yeah, we will years later.
Yeah.
And one of those characters will come across someone named something Solo.
Yeah.
And you're like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
Descendant of Ben. I mean,
Absolutely.
I don't know.
One of the other biggest criticisms of the new movies is that they or even new canon in general is that they feel like it makes Star Wars too small, and everyone wants to just broaden Star Wars and go to different places. So why are people so? I want to see the Skywalker saga continue, but why are they so hellbent on it continuing? If much of the same argument is like,
sure, expand.
Like 'cause it needs to grow, but then
we don't want to grow.
But we don't want
outside
to
the Skywalker family.
Yeah, we want to continue.
I get you.
There's only so much you can do that makes sense until you start bringing in cloning and all this crap that you're never gonna see on the big screen.
Yeah,
it just the torch has to be passed, and that's just how creativity can just blossom and continue. It just you can only beat that story down so much.
I tell you what, my friend, we are living in some good times in Star Wars.
Amen.
Because we really just have no idea, and
it's great.
And like last week, we were talking about the interview, that was done by, what was that comedian's name? You mentioned him. You like him, Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
And just sort of, we have no clue.
No clue.
We have no clue what JJ's going to do, and he's doing the Lord's work.
Amen.
He really is going to tie this in some way. We're going to consume it.
Is he? And that's the thing. This is what JJ does so well. If you've watched Lost, well, I'm only 3 seasons in of 6 or 7 seasons, but it's just like mystery is his thing, and that's what he does so well. And that's
I think he'll leave this open.
I do too.
Yeah, I think
I
he
do
will.
too. And it's genius that they brought him in this storytelling aspect that he brings to the movies, because there is so much lore. Like that's what the originals and the prequels brought us, this lore, and then he has a way of building suspense. When episode 4 ended, there was nothing suspenseful about it. Episode 5, you could argue that like Luke's missing his hand and
Hans and
there's some suspense there, but there's no questions of heritage and
right.
He was almost he does a really good job of rebooting like series, obviously, but like I just think he was the perfect choice for it for the base that George Lucas has built, to add some suspense and to make us question to a point to where we have no idea.
We are theorizing out the wazoo here. We don't know.
Yeah, and Rian Johnson not so much did that, but he just kind of left things more open. Than JJ did, but that still all of JJ's open-endedness is still relevant
there.
Because we question it so much that we don't believe that Kylo Ren when he says your parents were nothing. We're just like, he's totally lying.
He's lying. Well, but that's what happened in 5.
Exactly.
That's what happened in 5.
Yeah,
people left and they said, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Don't believe him for a second, Luke.
Yeah.
He is totally... Obi-Wan would never lie to you.
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
That no one thought Obi-Wan would lie.
Yeah.
But he did.
Yeah.
From a certain point of view.
Yeah.
Well, or he didn't from a certain point of view. You know what I mean?
There's a beauty to it being... There's a beauty to there being an acceptance that she just comes from no one, and that she's doing a great thing, and she's a positive person, and she's taking this and doing good with it. And there's something else beautiful about the possibility of her being a Skywalker and carrying the torch, that her father, lifted, and just running with it, and for a whole new generation. There's something beautiful and just blending the two, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Letting the past die, but also honoring it through heritage.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's
I
just a
know.
beautiful thing.
It is.
It's interesting, and now we'll see what JJ does. But
Yeah.
if he's gonna finish it out, he's gonna do it with open-endedly.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, my friend.
Gosh,
Goodness,
interesting
guys.
conversation.
Yes, and I'm glad we had it. And, you know, and one of my goals here in doing this was I wanted you guys to hear and to see my good friend Michael Canterbury just
Left field.
pouring it out there.
Just out of left field too, because
Just talking about Star Wars though, because
Yeah.
that's the thing is that like we often talk about like, wow, what's the big topic? What's the big thing? What's the whatever? It really just flows. It
does.
The Force
it's
takes
strong.
us in places we didn't think we were going to go.
Yeah.
And it's strong.
You wouldn't, I mean, and that's the thing. You pose that question to another podcast, and maybe they start breaking down like, well, if you take into consideration all the battles that Mace Windu, fought and his strength, and here's his abilities compared to Luke, like,
Yeah.
that's just not what I'm into when I go
I
to
know, and
Star
that's-
Wars, man. I
yeah.
go to Star Wars, I could watch any episode of Star Wars and I cry.
Yeah.
I could
yeah.
cry, and it's not because Luke does a force jump.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not because he shot, that epic, blaster bolt into the Death Star and blew it up. Nah, man. It takes me. I go to the story and just the meaning behind the action and the decisions being made.
Right.
And it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, some of that dialogue, like you had said last week when Snoke is telling Kylo to take that
ridiculous thing off.
Oh my
You're nothing but a
gosh.
child in a mask, and just
You're
his
sitting there
face.
and you're like,
in
did
response.
he just say that? Like,
Yeah.
what? Is he
Yeah.
going to take it? What's he going to do?
Yeah.
How's he going to handle this? So
Yeah, I don't know, man. You could pose that question to anyone else, but I feel like it leads us back to like, and it should for everyone. What is Star Wars to you? Is the Force abilities the
well, it depends on your age too. Sometimes I think,
Yeah.
or just where you're at, or where your development is in Star Wars. Because I've got a lot of kids who love. That's another aspect to it. Like they love that. They love talking about those little intricacies and things that you can do with the Force. And you can do this and you can't do that, and all that kind of stuff. And it's cool. I love to hear them kind of talk about it. And we could do that, my friend.
We could.
We can do it with the best of them. But for us, it's been the story. It's been the decisions, the morals, the morale, that hero arc, the hero journey.
Yeah.
And I think so.
And that makes me excited that the Galaxy of Adventures is focusing on those those hero arcs.
Yeah.
And then he's just a simple guy, and he learns, that he is destined for good things.
Yeah.
And I that's
Right.
That's what brings me to Star Wars.
Yeah, me too, buddy. So I'm so glad. So that, my friends, is how we do it here on Rebel Watch. We just pose a question to Michael Canterbury, and we let him take off.
Yeah, maybe I
love
didn't
it.
answer anyone's question. People are going to come here thinking we're going to have that conversation, and we just
just not.
just wasn't.
It's not that. That's not what. Again, and that's fine. I mean, we can, and if people want to hear it, we can do it.
We must.
We can. There are probably. I was just looking there about hundreds of Force abilities that we can
Oh, my
talk about.
goodness.
Both on the light and the dark side, especially when you start to get into Legends. And I would love to hear somebody rattle off all of them, and different things, but from memory. It's a lot of work. It's an expanded universe, and it's so cool to kind of think about. I think people had forgotten about some of the Force projection stuff and some of the communication through the Force and things that had been done in Legends. And then when you see it in Last Jedi, you're like, holy smokes.
Yeah.
And there's subtleties. It's different, and it is what it is. But
Absolutely.
anyways, just a different conversation for you guys. We wanted to kind of talk about one of our favorite characters, and as I said in the beginning, when I wake up in the morning, man,
Amen.
I think about Luke Skywalker.
Amen.
And when I lay down at night,
Yeah.
I think about Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
And that is all I think about, my friend.
Absolutely, man.
So there it is. So let us know your thoughts on Master Skywalker, his development, his powers, what you like about him, what you don't like about him, all that good stuff. And we'll do a little recap, next week maybe, and talk more about, the Grand Master.
Amen.
So, all right, friends. Hey, check us out on Twitter at RW2187 and at Wamprat_2M. We also have our Facebook page. We'd love for you guys to get on there and chat with us. Hit us up on the voicemail as well. Down in the link there, you'll see, or the description, you'll see the number for the voicemail. We love playing those and listen to your guys' thoughts. So if you have thoughts on Master Skywalker, hit us up, send us an audio clip, or if you want to go longer than 3 minutes, record your own audio clip. Send
a
Mike.
dissertation.
Let's go.
Did you write a college paper, your 30-page paper on Luke Skywalker and his force abilities? Send it our way.
We want to read it.
Absolutely.
Okay? So we want to pick it apart. So, all right, friends. Thanks again for listening, and as always, may the Force be with you.